Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November 2023 Evergreen Cataloging Interest Group. I am Jennifer Weston, the facilitator of this fine group. And on behalf of everybody listed here as an organizing committee member, we welcome you once again to our monthly gathering of catalogers and cataloging allies. As we gather for the last time in 2023, we will not meet in December. So we'll start with our agenda. If anybody that happens to be new to our group, we welcome you. And just as a quick reminder, our agenda, which you should be seeing which you should be seeing now, which I'm sharing, will magically turn into our notes as we go along. Everyone that has the access to this document, and you should because you are here, then you have the ability to make edits. And I appreciate the help in taking notes. I do my best to drop notes in as we're talking and having great conversations, but anybody that wants to update certainly can. Special thank you in advance to the organizing committee that helps me remember to take notes as we go along. These notes will be published up to the wiki with usually I say 24 to 48 hours, but I'm just going to say by the end of the week. So the notes will be published along with the recording from today, but all previous notes and recordings can be found on our wiki. So today we're just going to run through our standing agenda items. We have quite a few because we like to celebrate what's going on in the community and share what's going on with each of our libraries, and then also what's going on in Evergreen releases. And then we're going to talk about cataloging reports. And yes, Mackenzie, I did just see your note. It was your mere arrival that reminded me to start recording. It's always your presence and your spirit that helps me remember that. So thank you. I love the community because it's always those little reminders that make the day better. As we're going through this, is there anything else you all want to talk about? We don't necessarily have a full formal presentation of any kind today. I really just want to revisit cataloging reports just to let you know from an organizing committee standpoint. These are things that we've talked about in the last year and a half or so that we don't want to lose momentum. And going into 2024, we want to revisit some of those things that are on our wish list for cataloging reports, especially as we've got some other options for how to use things like MarcEdit and things like simple reports that we haven't necessarily given a lot of attention to. So again, while there's no formal presentation, if there are things that you want to add to the agenda for discussion, please do. And we do have a few updates from the community as well. Starting with those updates from the community, there's the wiki. I always say this, but I'm going to take a special moment this month to say, yes, it's always a work in progress. This time I'm going to say, as we look towards 2024, I'm going to put out a formal call for people to volunteer to join me in the joy that is updating the wiki, so that not only can we make progress, but so that I'm not the only person that, well, quite honestly, it has access to that, because that's just not a good best practice for we've got to have succession planning. I'm not going anywhere. I don't mean in any way to imply that, but I would like some backup, at least on the wiki, and then also to keep me honest, to make sure that we are continuing to make progress on the wiki. So not asking for volunteers now. It's the holiday season, or we're entering the holiday season, and we're all crazy busy trying to get ready for what will be a fantastic new year. But think about this as something that you're interested in. Agreeing to be part of a group that updates the wiki doesn't have to be something that is an onerous task, something that has to be looked at every week, but it is something that I would like to work with somebody on to collaborate on. One or two or three or a dozen people, there's no limit to the number of people. And we'll make sure you get a wiki account for updating that. So I did want to take a moment. I'm going to say quite a few things about preparing for next year, as this is our last meeting, and that's one of them. So if you do want to email me and volunteer before the end of the year, that would certainly be a welcome thing, and we can meet prior to January. If not, this is one of those things I want to start kind of building a committee around that, subcommittee, to use a rather formal word I didn't intend to use, but just kind of a little working group that maintains the wiki. So as I continue to talk very rapidly, I'm realizing it's just been a busy day. I'm going to slow down. The Evergreen release notes are there. You've seen a lot of activity on the listservs, both the general discussion list and the cataloging list, about 312, because Feedback Fest was last week. So all of our documentation is updated here to the extent that it is available as of today. What is not there yet is anything that's come out of 312, other than I point you to the development roadmap. which was updated the last time we met. But you will see that the schedule is certainly coming into focus as Feedback Fest is wrapping up. And if we check that out and see when the schedule tells us the final release is tentatively scheduled for the first week in December, so that we will see the Evergreen roadmap. And again, this is a roadmap. That's not a date that's set in stone, but it's certainly a targeted date there. And if you've been watching, we are on track. So thank you to the release team whose names you see here at the top of the screen. Thank you to everyone there who has made this possible. For a very successful Feedback Fest, I've got a link to the results from that. And we are now going into our feature freeze. Keep saying we'll talk about it in a moment, and it's down here to celebrate under celebrations, but I'm going to scroll down there because Taryn's here. Hi, Taryn. Do you have a microphone today?
Hi, I do, for a
Great.
change.
I've learned to ask that question instead of saying, Taryn, do you want to ask? Do you want to talk to us? So, Taryn, would you like to update us on Feedback Fest?
It went great.
Mhm.
We got an enormous amount of work done. There are 100 patches that actually got committed to 3.12, and a lot of those were things that we were able to backport to 3.11 and even 3.10. So a lot of those are accessibility improvements, which is great. Thanks to Stephanie, who I think is here as well.
She is. Yay,
Um,
Stephanie.
but a lot of other things, there's actually been some bugs that have been holding around, or I can't talk today. Um, some bugs that have been reported years ago that actually got fixed for this one. So we're very excited.
Mhm.
Um, so the 312 branch is available. If anybody, and my test servers that I sent out the links to are still up and running too, with a few things installed on them. If anybody wants a little sneak peek of what the current things look like, they haven't been updated for about a week, so they don't have everything new on them. But um, and so tomorrow at the new developers meeting, the release team and Galen will be meeting to talk about how to actually build an actual release. So that's new to a
Well,
lot of
that's
us. So we're
nice.
excited. Yeah. So anybody's welcome to come sit in if you want, and we'll record that as well.
And that is at 3 p.m. tomorrow, Eastern.
Yes. Yes.
And I missed in there while I was typing that many older bugs, I'm just going to say many. I don't need to put that in quotes. Many older bugs, which means we can go back through our cataloging list and start marking things off we've been watching for a while.
Yeah. We've actually had the oldest one that got fixed was submitted 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
There's another one from 8 years ago, one from 7 years ago, a bunch from 4 and 5 years ago. So yeah,
Oh,
it's going to be a good one. There's not a lot of things that are huge and flashy in here, although there are a few wish lists for things. But it's going to be really useful, I think.
wow. Yeah, no doubt. This is exciting. 100. And we broke records this time again, right?
We definitely broke records on during Feedback Fest week on how many bugs were committed or how many patches were committed to main, to the main code, and also what was the other thing? I think how many patches were submitted maybe as well.
That's just remarkable. So, a big thank you to Taryn, as always, for wrangling all of this. And then to everybody who had a hand in it. I'm going to get this link in here while I'm trying to multitask at the same. Thanks to whoever else can make sure I got that right. Test that link, I think. Yeah, I think that worked. That's phenomenal. So next, yeah, you got a lot of kudos there. Let me stick with this one, if I may. And Taryn, I don't mean to put you on the spot at all, or you, Stephanie. There was one email you sent out right as Feedback Fest was wrapping up about this bug that I've added down here under needs discussion. And it looks like discussion, it did indeed happen because catalogers are awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just
Um,
gonna, do you want to speak a bit to that? And then,
yeah. So the initial patch enabled spell checking, but it enabled it for both the enhanced mark screen and the flat text, and it doesn't really work on the flat text. So we decided to not include it. But then I think, did Stephanie, did you work on that patch
Yes.
to fix it?
Yep.
But we haven't had a chance to test the newest release of that. So that will probably end up having to wait until the next release.
So when that's ready to be tested, you certainly have a built-in audience to do that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And
Um,
Taryn, when you say next release, do you mean next point release or next major version release?
I That's kind of one of those things that's in between. It's not really a bug, but
Hmm.
it's not really a new feature. I mean, I think it's more of a new feature,
Yeah,
and
okay,
it
so
could
probably.
probably be backported. So
Yeah, we considered it a bug because the auto suggest was disabled during a Mark editor rewrite a while back. So spell check used to work many, many moons ago. Um,
so it could probably be in the next point release then. I mean, there's still a possibility we might be able to get it into 3.12, but
yeah, if you look at the patch, it's tiny. And the
yeah,
change to take out the flat text editor was
yeah.
also really
And it
tiny.
was
So
mostly tested before. Yeah. So that may
yeah.
end up getting in.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to let you stay tuned there. I will say, if anybody wants to review a little bit more about that bug to see the history that Stephanie was talking about, and then certainly what Taryn, and then thanks to Jane also, I believe, when as you guys were testing this, trying to determine if it was ready to be released, this is when you found that the spell check worked fine in the advanced editor, enhanced editor, but the flat text editor was not so um, not
Yeah,
so
it
ready to
was
accept spell check.
because of the like the
Subfields.
way the flat text center is marked up, it would have like $A, and then the title would all be marked as misspelled because of the
Mhm.
$A at the start
Yeah.
or whatever.
And while we very much appreciate, not while it may sound like I'm going to discount that, we very, very much appreciate being able to weigh in on that kind of thing, because I think what you've found, and not just one response, but Britta and Catherine and Carol and Mackenzie, we had multiple catalogers that really responded in the Launchpad bug within just a day or two, really, to say, no, we really use flat text and we don't want
Yeah,
spell check and flat text. And then Stephanie clearly said, okay, on it in flat text. So she
yeah.
released a patch for that.
And
Or if patch is the
yeah,
right word, but
and that is exactly how Launchpad should work.
I
It's
think this is
everybody
a
providing feedback. Yeah,
model of how that should work, and I want to call
exactly.
attention to it. And so we'll stay tuned for that. Anybody not now that we've answered for the entire cataloging community, if anybody does not use flat text in the way that it was represented in the Launchpad bug and would really, really like to advocate for having spell check and flat text and has any idea about how you might make that work, feel free to join in discussions in other ways in the future. I think this discussion was about we want to use this now, but in a way that makes sense without additional development that would make flat text work. So anyway, I don't want to speak for everybody. I just I know that everybody that responded on the Launchpad bug kind of was of one mind, and so I did catch myself going, "Oh, we all believe that," and that might not be true. But for moving this forward, I think that there was consensus there. Despite, yes, Mackenzie alone does not constitute consensus, but there was enough other feedback. And I also think it's hard to say, which one to use most, and will spell check really apply there? Because yeah, I mean, some of the things you just pop over to the enhanced editor because those fixed fields are so much easier to change. But so then we all have our preferences. But this was specifically about spell check rather than just the preferences for one tab over another. Anyway, so I've talked too long about that, but thanks again for the work on that and allowing us to be part of that before it got released into the community. And then we started talking about, well, an unintended consequence that might have happened. So thank you very much for that. As I've scrolled down into the agenda, I'll scroll back up. Too far. Where's Feedback Fest? There it is. There's where my notes are. Anything else about Feedback Fest that we should highlight?
Do you
Didn't
have
say
anything else?
I didn't say Taryn is awesome, but there we go. I'll sneak that in other ways in the final report there. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for moving this forward. And I can't wait to get to play around with that a little more when the full release comes out in December. Thanks to y'all. We're not meeting in December. If, however, there is I'm trying to say something without committing anybody else to it. We will keep an eye out for a community server that might be available for 312. And when there is a community server available for 312, we'll put that out on the wiki and make an announcement. There you go. I didn't commit to anything other than letting you know when it's available. My diplomatic hat on, which is it's slower than my slower than my thoughts right now. Oh, thanks, Taryn. Taryn's going to put one up for us. Woohoo! Okay, while we're celebrating, let's continue to celebrate as I'm scrolling. It's almost Thanksgiving. Yay! Hey, I can't. Yes, that's fabulous. Woo! And yes, Thanksgiving is next week. We all know that except for me because I'm in total denial. I'm going to just skip over that. Well, hello, Jonathan. You haven't missed too much. We were celebrating Feedback Fest. I'm just reading Jonathan Redmond's note in chat. I need to do this more often as we're recording the video. So welcome. We are just reviewing Feedback Fest results, and you can find the link to those further down in our notes because we've been jumping around a bit. Yeah, so while we're celebrating / in denial about Thanksgiving, I wanted to look backwards for a moment to talk just a tiny moment about Evergreen Hackaway that happened last month. This link is not only just to the announcement about Hackaway, but all the many, many accomplishments that were captured and documented during Hackaway are here on the wiki. Again, I hadn't intended to read through this other than to let you know that the kinds of things you see once you scroll down below to see everybody who attended, the accomplishments are there. You see bugs that were reviewed or submitted. You see discussion and research conversations. You see sign-offs, pull requested items, which of course were included in Feedback Fest. New patches submitted. You see all this work that happened during Hackaway. So when we say Hackaway, oftentimes I don't stop to try to describe what Hackaway is. This will tell you a lot more about it. The link here, Hackaway just being the time. This is the first event in quite a few years where developers and people that contribute to testing and bug wrangling and development come together in person with some focused time. And this happened in Indianapolis. Evergreen, Indiana was once again the host for the first in-person event. So I want to thank you to Evergreen, Indiana. Thanks to everyone that participated. And thanks to all of you who made sure it got documented so that we could share that out this way. So I'm terrible.
And we will be looking for somebody to potentially host for next year. So if you want developers to descend upon your area of the planet, let Rogan or myself know. And Rogan Hamby, that is, with Equinox. And we will look to make that happen. It's great fun, and a lot of work does get done, as you can tell.
And it's typically in October. Is that correct, Ruth?
It is typically in October, yes.
Okay, and I will throw your emails in there in a while. Thanks. Anything else, Ruth, or Taryn, anybody else that was there that you want to add about Hackaway? Other than it was great for all of you to be back together again. And thanks to Ruth for all the wrangling. Yes, indeed.
I didn't do all the wrangling, but thank you for saying that. And thanks to everybody else that helped me wrangle. And I'd invite you all to absolutely should not speak for an institution. Okay.
See, today's the day. My filter's off, Ruth. Go for it.
I was just reading what Mackenzie wrote into chat. I was like, okay. I will say it is a great experience, first of all, and even if you don't think of yourself as a developer or anything like that, if there's a way for you to participate, it is a very work-focused environment. This is the place where the higher level discussions about the future of the software tend to happen in a technological sense. This is where actually it was 10 years ago this year that the web client was first discussed at the Grand Rapids Hackaway. And of course, now that is the world that we move in, is the web client. This year, there were some pretty major things in addition to all of the bugs and things that were talked about. One of the big deal things had to do with the Redis or Redis, which is a new framework for OpenSurf, which most people don't think about, but it's a necessary component to actually run Evergreen. Most people, I don't even know who I'm talking about. Most people, if you're a system administrator, you 100% think about it all the time. But then also talking about like how Angular is used, the web development language. So that's where these discussions happen. And so we do try to make it accessible in terms of having some Zoomage available, but it's just way easier to get involved if you happen to be there. And so if you want to be involved, but you don't know if you could be at the table, hosting is a great opportunity for that. And we'll be talking with the project board also in terms of funding it and sponsorships and things like that. So lots of things that could allow an institution to get involved with the Hackaway. It's like kind of like a mini conference on developer steroids.
I think that's a great advertisement for getting involved. And see, here I tried to nice my general vague description, foundational development. Thank you, Taryn. A newer framework that should improve performance. A newer framework, because I was not going to spell Redis correctly. Newer framework. Thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Taryn. And so if you have any questions about Hackaway, you have folks here today that were at Hackaway that can certainly answer those. Feel free to reach out to the outreach committee that Rogan facilitates, or reach out to him directly, or just, pop a note on the Evergreen general list. It's a friendly group. Okay, moving right along, speaking of friendly group, I have underlined a few of the dates that were either coming up for upgrades in November or December, but we're not limited to that. Anybody here want to celebrate or let us know that you're planning to upgrade so that we can, just be there with you in spirit? Or anybody that's recently upgraded?
I just want to do a shout out here to say that we postponed ours to January 2024. And if you also have to postpone your upgrade, no shame. Celebrate that as well. And taking the time to get it right. We're doing a little bit of cherry picking. We're kind of hoping that we get a 3.11.2 that a point release that drops before then, but we'll see if that actually happens or not. But we're also going to be implementing Aspen in March will be our launch. Tonight is your 3.11. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Indian Valley.
Super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be less. And we're also going to be implementing BooPack. So Evergreen, Indiana is going to be up super pretty real quick.
And thank you for dropping that out in there, because yes, postponed January. But we get to add will include. Are we still calling it BooPack? I'm fine with BooPack.
I guess we're calling it BPAC.
Okay. Well, no, I'll put BPAC.
But some of us will always say BooPack in our head and out loud.
I will. Yep. Because now that 3.8 isn't seeing development anymore. True. This is a good way to see that. Yeah, so continue that. Indian Valley, I didn't want to miss you. Missouri Evergreen, correct, Keen? I do try to keep you all straight there. I think. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We get the point. It won't be your problem anymore, but we'll still track you. Okay. 311 tonight. Nope, you're February. All right, Indian Valley. Where do I need to put you in there? I'm just going to drop you down here and then I'll figure that out later because I don't want to lose you. And I do go back through our chat notes. So if I have missed anybody, I will fix you. Promises. Okay, there we go. You're part of Spark. That's what I'd see. I knew that, but I just forgot that. There you are. Upgrading to 311 tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it. Which means when we come back together in January, some of you will be working on 311 for a while and I'll have lots to share with us in the libraries that have not yet upgraded. All right, yes, continue to work on that. Make sure we've got everybody reflected correctly. Yeah, incremental upgrades for the win. Absolutely. Okay. I like it when we have a nice, busy business kind of meeting like this to catch up without a terribly heavy presentation sometimes. I like to catch up with what's going on. Okay. Here we are with community calendars that we absolutely love since we have one community calendar. If you've not yet gotten the message that there is one unified community calendar, I certainly recommend that you check that out because you can subscribe to that and see what's going on with all interest groups all in one place. And thank you to the united power of interest groups that made that happen. So I do have these updated meeting dates on here to the best of my knowledge. A couple of notes here to follow on dates that are not there. Well, let me just do this. 30s working group. We're going to have meetings, we promise. That's kind of further down here. We've got to know that they'll be coming soon. Yeah. So we're going to schedule these. Promise. And let's see what there you are. You're Captain Ahab. So this is what happens when you put links on my notes. I click on them. So yes, this is what Mackenzie has been for the last while. But thank you for choosing an authority record to illustrate the craziness. Thanks. So Mackenzie, as part of the authority working group, along with several other people that are here today and several others that are not, we have not met since the last meeting. And, for the same reasons that we're a working group, is because we meet as we can. We will find dates to meet before the end of the year. Yes, and we will announce those. So work out for those. Note about the BibFrame study group. I have inside information that this is going to be reconvened, but look for updates in 2024 as we revisit a look at BibFrame and what that may mean to an Evergreen community. Because BibFrame, once again, is not going away and cannot be denied. So that study group will come back into being and meeting in the new year. So I covered Authorities Working Group. AC, I know, got canceled, so if that has a new date, I just haven't found it yet. Bugfest we've got. I think everything else has a date on here. I think so. So anything else? I got notes that are continued from previous months about the reports doc rewrite that's going on with DIG, and there's a feedback link there. We're documentation interest group is always looking for feedback on the new documentation. This reports doc rewrite was no small thing. So once again, congratulations on the continuing updates there. And then the user interface interest group, Stephanie's still here. I urge you, even if you cannot attend this particular interest group, it's a new one that Stephanie's doing a fabulous job leading. And I'm finish a sentence here. One of the things I love about this is it's called a user interface interest group, which means this applies to every single person that is a user of Evergreen. We don't have to just be catalogers or acquisitions people or documentation people or reports people. It really just talks about the putting some consistency, some standards around the user interface and also some accessibility considerations, not just some, but a lot. So even if you can't attend those meetings, I urge you to subscribe to that listserv because you can be part of those discussions. Let me pause for a moment and ask Stephanie if there's anything you want to specifically say about that or anybody from any of the interest groups.
Not really. We're not a very chatty group, but I do have a couple of things I'm going to be sort of polling that interest group about very soon. So we have some changes that we are planning to button colors, the way that dialogues work, how keyboard focus moves around, especially with dialogues and those modal pop-ups, and coming up soon with the grid and changing the way that works, possibly changing it so that wrapped text is the default and you have to actively truncate things so that you don't always have to hover over something to see the full text in the tooltip, and setting up some sensible default widths for the grid columns. So all of that is coming up in the next few months. So join the UI group if that sounds interesting and you want to have some input on those things.
Those things all sound very interesting. See, my little preview that you have some really great things going on. Okay, thank you for that. So just if some people were to subscribe, you can subscribe by going to your wiki page, right? Let me double check that's true. There you are, mailing list, easy peasy. The way to keep up and follow along. And of course, like all the interest groups, you do a fine job of making sure that we can go back and review notes and recordings. So thank you for that. Okay. Any other updates from any other interest groups?
I don't have, this is not an interest group update, but I was looking through the agenda trying to find the right place. So I'm just going to throw it here. This is actually an update from the strategic plan subcommittee of the Evergreen project board. So there are going to be, we are working on developing a strategic plan for the Evergreen project, the 501c3. And there will be some upcoming community conversations that there will be open invitations to. And anybody that is part of the community can get in on those discussions. There'll be some more guidance on that, but we are hoping to have those planned to happen in January. So just a little heads up on that.
The perfect place to insert that, Ruth. Thanks.
Thank you.
And you don't have to subscribe to anything special for that. It'll just go to the general listserv, correct?
That's correct.
Fabulous. So coming up in January. Woo-hoo. And clearly, as members of the community interest group, that means you. We are certainly members of the community.
And also, while we're talking about it, there's going to be elections for the project board coming up in March. So if you are interested in getting more involved at the governance level for the Evergreen project community, think about it. If you need to, get permission from your supervisors. I don't know, whatever you got to do.
Thanks. So coming up in March. And again, that will be announced on the general listserv. Anything else from the board, Ruth?
Go on. There will also be some information coming up soon about the international conference in 2024. It will be online, and there should, I believe, be announcements about a site selection for 2025 coming soon as well, hopefully. Also, there has been a call for proposals for presentations for the 2024 online conference. And so if you as catalogers want to see a certain type of session, I would recommend that maybe you lead it or get somebody else. Encourage them to present the topic that you want to learn more about. So I don't have any links available for that right now, but that information did go out via the general list in terms of submitting proposals for sessions during that conference.
Yes, and I can't believe I forgot that one. So thank you. And we'll find that link so we'll have it. It's probably a good time to send a reminder out for that one too. Yeah. So yeah. I left the site selection off, but we'll just do this one for now. Yeah. And we generally talk about this as Catalan community. So maybe that'll be our December just asynchronous conversation, is thinking about proposals for the conference next year. Because certainly if it's online, we have more opportunities to participate and certainly more opportunities to provide content and then make requests for content and things we'd like to see. discussed. Thanks, Ruth. I really had forgotten to include that. And Taryn makes a nice note, never know what to present about, so request on needed topics would be great. Oh, we should just put together a nice long list of topics. Okay, so that's that. Any other interest group before we move on? See if I think I have them all on there. We should just add the Evergreen board to our, we don't really call this interest groups. We just call it Catalogers Connect. So that fits there. Okay, so we skipped over working group updates. Well, we did those early. We didn't skip. So we've already talked about those. Look for notices about authorities working group. Launchpad bugs, we don't really need to go through all of those because we've talked a lot about Feedback Fest already, which of course is related to bugs. One of the things I want to say is of the 12 staff catalog blockers, these are ones that currently they are bugs representing functionality for which there is not a workaround outside of the traditional catalog. We had a conversation about these and looked at all 12 of them a few months ago. The traditional catalog is one of those things that can be disabled now in the staff interface, but if it's still there, anyway, I will put a link to our conversation about the traditional catalog if you're not familiar with what that term means. And this staff catalog blocker means that there are bugs that you lose a little bit of functionality without the traditional catalog. So I giving a long preface to say one of these has been fixed in 3.12. So there's a fixed committed status on at least one of these. And skipping over some of these others, we did talk about starting in January or February having one of our meetings that we just come back and we talk about bugs a bit more because we generally do that at least twice a year. So we will certainly put that on the top of our list to consider in the first quarter. And we just captured some of the notes about this bug reminder. This is the bug we talked about for spell check before. Which brings us, for the next 20 minutes, we can talk about cataloger reports. This I envision is just the next in a series of conversations we've been having about reports. One of the things we envision with this group is allowing time to talk about a topic more than once, like we did with monograph parts. We recognize monograph parts was the kind of thing that we talk about once and there'd be lots of follow-ups. So it's the reason we split that conversation into 2 months. If you missed any of that or you want to revisit it, there's some really great resources, great conversations that happen there. So I just linked to September and October. That said, we've kind of done the same thing with reports for the last year and a half or so. Rogan and I had one of the online conferences we did, just kind of a roundtable. We started talking about the future of collection development, which kind of meant reports and dashboardy kind of things. So if you are interested in the most prime example of stream of consciousness notes taking for that roundtable, please click on notes and check that out. And you'll just see what's essentially a transcription of chat notes, really. So we took that and we brought it back to the cataloging interest group. And we talked about some of those ideas that came out of that initial discussion, the kinds of reports we'd like to see. And those meeting notes are here from September of a little more than a year ago. We had 3 wish list projects that came from that, kind of categorize the types of reports. Some of them were dashboard related, some were diversity audit. And Stephanie, this was a little before you joined us. So diversity, and at this point I would add accessibility audit for report purposes. And then, yeah. And then the third wish list project was item status screen improvements. And one of the things that we've done is we did have a follow-up conversation about item status screen improvements, which I believe is something we should also revisit in the new year, though it's not tied directly to reports. It was more about what can we see on the screen without having to pull a report. Conversation kind of went that way. I don't want to pull a report. I just want to be able to see it on the screen. All of that is there in the notes. So I'm providing a lot of history to get us to today to start talking about, again, this will be our first conversation. We will revisit it in January. But we start looking at this reports wish list that we had. The cataloging interest group worked with the reports interest group, and we had a crossover day when we had this interest group conversation. So we kind of captured some of these suggestions for things. And we had a conversation during that reports interest group. Let's kind of close this up a little bit to essentially say, is this something that's doable currently? And to provide as much information as possible. So that's what you'll kind of see here. Some of these notes say this is possible, totally doable, per Chris S. That's Chris Sharp. So if we want to revisit this, we'll say Chris said it was possible. But one of the things we did do is try to triage some of this. But this in no way is a full list of all the things that we might want to talk about. So I would like to pose this question today, and then also suggest that this be the second conversation we just run through the month of December, where we just kind of share our ideas. So it will be an email thread.
Jennifer, I want to throw a little, not a wrench in here, but
Yeah,
actually a
sure.
gear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I'm super excited and I can't shut up about it.
Okay.
So the ECDI,
Mm-hmm.
which I also coordinated, is working on a project with Equinox, and it is the angularization of buckets. And we're starting with record buckets. And one of the components of that is a report to bucket feature.
Ooh,
So,
what?
yes.
Somebody give me
So,
balloons on the notes.
So
Woohoo.
the reason I say this is a gear is that I think that one of the things, well, I know that one of the things is it's going to do is it's going to use that functionality of buckets and what you can envision, like in record buckets, and it's going to allow you to put things from reports into buckets directly and have display in different ways. And I'm super excited about it, but I do think it kind of might change the way we think about some of the cataloging reports wish
Heck
list.
yes. Woohoo.
So just throwing that one in there.
Okay. And I know you cannot answer this question. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to ask it
I'm gonna
anyway.
try.
So timeline.
We have just entered into the point where we're almost ready to sign a contract and spend the money on it. We've
So
got through the functional
next
specs.
year-ish.
We've gone through the functional specs. Yes. So with probably not next year sometime.
Yeah. Timeline is not yet determined. Let me
But
just say that.
this is another shout out for Feedback Fest and for Bug Squash is that there's going to come a time when this is a feature that needs to be signed off. It will be a launchpad
Oh,
ticket, and catalogers get in on this because it will be, first of all, fun and exciting. And the other thing too is that there also is coming down the pipe, and this is jumping ahead, and this is not our project, but there also is the angularization of the reporter,
yes.
which may also change the way we think a little bit about the simple reporter.
Mm-hmm.
So just throwing
Yep.
those gears into the whole thought.
I love it.
Just need to also set up a authority bucket.
Yep. Hey,
Not outside the realm of possibility.
no. Mm-mm. I'm capturing that. Let me go back. Keen says circ report. All right. So I'm going to capture that there.
Oh, actually, that's really
It's a great
within
one.
that is a great one.
So cert thing. So I see that you're working on a report to find numbers, stat categories. Yeah, I'm going to separate that because stat cat reports can be a headache. Stat cat reports, statistical categories. Satan. I should just make that Satan. Statistical categories in reporting. We have, I know that libraries are using StatCat reports, but it also depends. One of the things that we've encountered is that you can't really nest. You can't use one StatCat to be a condition for the next StatCat. So just to share my particular headache. Okay. StatCat reports are the literal worst. I did call them Satan, Taryn. Yes. One single StatCat, if you just want a list of, all your values, that's fine. But you might actually want, data that you can do something with. That's tricky. So if anybody has a really good one that they would like to share, and that includes you, Keen, if you master that one, please let us know. But we can certainly put together examples. I put, as I say, examples, I put a link to the reports interest group sample reports page up there because that would be the appropriate place to share. Other, you can just drop them here too. And I'm not going to lose that. I'm just going to say they're using StatCats. I'll take out my editorializing too. Anything else we want to put on this list? And again, I'm recognizing that this conversation is one we could have spent the entire hour on. let's see, 30 buckets. 30 buckets. We're still talking the 30s. Okay. Some of the other things that we had looked at when we first started this conversation was getting information out of bib records. And Mackenzie, do you have your hand raised?
I do, just in terms of your question of other things we need, which I might just point right in, but it is the ability to when you on your filters to be able to like from a Boolean structure, you line up your filters, it's and all the way down. The only way you can OR things is if you're using a list, and then you can only OR the things that are in the list. So to be able to somehow, to be able to, OR with different filters, to have that type of functionality, among a myriad. Can't this just be as deep as going as an SQL query degrees of questioning? Like, oh, absolutely part of my past whale hunting month has been trying to build records that can replicate things I can do in an SQL query. Which, reporter can do a lot. And I'll thank goodness I finally cracked personally how the reporter works in comparison to an SQL query, because I could have read it from the SQL end. But there are things an SQL query can do that can return useful information that the reporter can't.
Sure.
And there's probably ways that the reporter can return information better than an SQL query. I'm thinking like this is for the permissions group, or for a group of returning a list of a user's permissions. If you're in with it clearly labeled which permission group you're in,
yes.
or if something has been applied individually. In an SQL query, that's unioning together three separate queries and querying, three separate. It's a lot. And if you're I had to type in someone's username three times to be consistent across the board. A reporter, I feel like the report structure could hypothetically, have the one text box and be able to do that. But that's the long-winded example, Kelsey, to say, to how much what further SQL type functionality can be implemented, even if it's like drip feeding, because I can understand the reporters, if you don't know SQL, the reporters can be, even the balance between depth and usability, for those who don't know SQL and data and database thinking, which so, but what further things can be added? Well, what further functionality can be added while keeping that user friendliness? And maybe that's also where the UI group also, of course, gets involved. But that's the summary version of it. Well, the summary version at the end of the long-winded TLDR.
It worked. Yes. And let me put a note about here.
I've had a month, y'all.
And it's only November 14th.
No, a month as in the last 4 to 5 weeks.
Got it. The last actual month. Yeah.
It's been. It
is. Congratulations on making it here. I want to call you the UI, Stephanie. What is the actual one?
It's the UI interest group. The
UI interest group.
The wiki code is UI_IG, which I think is really awkward, but there we are.
I'm going to say user friendliness. And as we said before, there's what's going to happen is the eventually is the whole angularization of the reporter, which means even more review of what's going on with those reports. I think
Going to be available to the public for viewing pretty soon.
see it. My filter is back on. I wasn't going to say anything about dates, but somebody else did. So let's do it.
I'm not going to commit to a date, but soon.
Reporter coming soon. Okay. As a reminder, that is not an opportunity to then talk about all the things the reporter cannot do because it did not do before. It's really making sure the reporter works in the new lovely angularized version. And making amends. Okay, there we go. With all the things we've said about the reporter. And again, I think we've got some kind of categories of things that have come out of these. I envision at some point after the first of the year just having a full meeting where we take off all the conversations that I very much enjoy, but that we don't do our standing agenda items and we come in and we just talk about this sort of thing. I want to keep a close eye on the soonness of the angularization of the reporter when it's coming, because I don't want to kind of mix messages about here we're looking at reports we might need versus just testing the functionality of what's there. So I'll keep a close eye on that. And then as the time's right, let's set up just a real working session to look at really putting some definition around the kinds of reports that we're interested in. And this being cataloging related in the sense that can we do quality control using the reporter? And if we're already doing that, I mean, are you already comparing your type, your format of your bib record against your items? I mean, that sort of thing. Or are you using this for just newly added materials to compare your cert modifiers, to look at your look at your cert modifiers, your shelving locations, your call numbers, that sort of thing. These are reports that we know libraries are using, but to be able to share them, especially for anybody that's new to a library that's using Evergreen, or any library that's new to using Evergreen, so whether you're a new staff person or a new cataloger or just a new library, we want to see if we can't put together some kind of shared documentation, get on the wiki. I know several of your consortia have really great things that you share already. Thanks, Taryn. We see you're leaving. We appreciate it. See ya. Happy Thanksgiving. Again, so this is just looking ahead. I did say that I would talk quite a bit about 2024 because it's never too early to start planning. And perhaps maybe this is one of those things that we do as part of the online conference this year too, if there's interest. So what I'll do is I'll send around kind of a message to try to gauge that particular interest, and then keep this conversation going about types of reports, because we can do this things asynchronously and just kind of send out a reminder once a week or so. In the month of December, it won't happen this month. So we'll have Thanksgiving, we'll come back and we'll make, let me leave myself just kind of a note down here. In December, we'll do asynchronous, which I never spelled correctly the first time seeing you watched me do it again. There, okay. Content to continue discussion of reports. There we go. So we'll do that as we start planning. And then I see, Keena, you started to do those kinds of reports. So yeah, that's exactly what I'd like to know, is how these are working for you, the kinds of bumps you run into, like things like stat cats, and if you've mastered that, or you have a report or two that's working, whether you consider it mastering or not, that we kind of share that sort of thing, because we shouldn't all have to tread those same bumps in the roads if others have been there before, and to give us ideas about the kinds of things we might want, because I know there is that sometimes just that option to just dump all the data into a spreadsheet, which is not a terrible option sometimes. But if there are things that we can share that get us to the data more quickly and the results more quickly, let's certainly investigate that, especially with the angularization of the reporter coming soon, because then we'll have, this crisper, cooler, hipper new look and feel to the reporter, and we can just start really putting it to work for us, along with everything else we'll be testing, right? So I think that brings us, as I'm trying to wrap up in a very long way, what we were talking about here. Again, I feel like this is a conversation that today's just introducing it, reminding us of some of the paths we've taken already, and then planting the seeds for perhaps some of these wish listy type projects that we can revisit. One of the things we've learned is that if we don't put together our ideas and start having those discussions, then of course we are never going to get the functionality we want. So that's the reason we try to come together and categorize, because we're catalogers, that's what we do, categorize our thoughts and and then look to the new year. That's my very long summary, and I apologize for that. My being tired, I talk too much. So let's see what Mackenzie's last note is here. I've been in the midst of trying to build out a report for those authority reports. Oh yeah, I brought up in the past. Yeah, and that's when you start finding them. I encourage you when we do announce our authority meeting to come to that, because Mackenzie has done some really, really great work trying to dig into how to make SQL SQL reports work for us to get the information we need out of there. Same thing with King County has got some really great reports we're looking at. They are looking at introducing to the community. So yeah, so come to get the update from Mackenzie on SQL reports. That's what his chat message is really telling you. I'm interpreting for you. So look for those authority working group meetings. All right, we have 1 minute to go. Sometimes I hang around a little longer, but I know we're all busy. If anything else anybody wants to add discussion wise, please feel free. I'm going to stop talking, and then I can also turn off the recorder. Otherwise, I thank you all so much for all you do throughout the year. I wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. We'll not see each other in December, but we will talk online. And our next call altogether will be Tuesday, January 9th. So happy holidays to all. Thanks a million times over, and we'll see you next year.